Welcome back to the Consciously Creating Your 2025 Online Summit. Now, I hope you have been enjoying the speakers that we've had so far today. We're wrapping up day one. If you're watching live, if you're watching the replays, this is part of an online summit with 15 different interviews, all about navigating 2025, whether that be the themes coming up, different healing solutions, or different ways we can navigate to have the best year of our lives. And of course, every year we're going to want to top it, but these ideas and strategies that you're encountering over this week can really be applied at any time. And I certainly hope that you have been enjoying what you've been seeing so far. So today I'm going to be talking to you about 8 guiding principles of how to live a consciously creating life. And I'm going to put on my slideshow here and hope that you will enjoy this. Some of these strategies I bet you're already doing, and maybe just you aren't conscious to doing them. And some of them may just be the medicine that you have been looking for. So let's get this ready to share. All right, here we go. So, consciously creating 8 guiding principles to get you going. Now, the first question you might be wondering is, what does it mean to be consciously creating? Like, what is it anyway? Well, for me, to be consciously creating is to be aware of where we have been, where we are right now, and where we are going. It's the solid foundation of knowing that we're here for a reason. You have purpose. You were no accident. You're here divinely placed. And that we co create with the universe to fulfill our purpose with intention, grace, and legacy. So, our first guiding principle is really that we're all doing the best that we can with the resources we have in this moment. So, we're all having a human experience. And with that, sometimes we're not necessarily demonstrating or utilizing our best selves. We have all sorts of things such as judgment and old baggage and misinformation and emotion that sometimes can cloud our judgment. And I mean, let's face it, you can take anyone who's your rock star superstar, but if you give them 3 or 4 nights with very little sleep and just fast, junky food and lots of caffeine and not much water and definitely not much in the way of emotional support, they're probably not going to perform the way they would if they're being nurtured and nourished in all ways. So understanding that we're doing the best at with what we have can really help us to demonstrate that grace, not just for others, but also for ourselves, which can sometimes be the most difficult. It's a little hard or a little challenging, rather, to stay in that space of anger, to stay in that space of heavy darkness when we can blanket the understanding that if that was their actual best, it's time to cultivate some compassion, right? And understanding that that compassion extends to ourselves as well. And the beautiful things about screwing up is that we can do better later. There's this this understanding of a genuine apology, right? And bringing that forward back to the forefront and saying, you know what, that wasn't my best and I apologize and I'm committed to doing better. So, what can I do to fix this situation? We know that all situations can't be fixed and we can't go backwards. But what we can do is own the present moment and continue moving forwards. Our next guiding principle is that we're the physical manifestation of our soul. Our body expresses what is created in our mind and in our energetic system. What we think becomes our physical reality. Now, I know you've heard that before. If you are someone who's done some personal development, it really is that thought becomes things idea. And when our soul and our thinking are out of alignment, that's when the illness, disharmony, restlessness, all of that occur in the body and in the programming of our consciousness and our unconscious mind. So, what do I mean by that? We have our 3D, our physical body. We can touch that right now. We can hold that, feel it, and we know that it is there. And we also have our energetic body and our spiritual body, and we have our conscious mind and our unconscious mind, all of which are less tangible. If we look at a picture of the brain, we can see a physical brain, but having the understanding of the connection to the universe that's there, our higher selves, our intuition, all of that can be a little bit less ability to put our finger on. So when we understand that all of these things, whether we can see and touch or not, are working in harmony, we can really have that understanding that that conversation, that interaction and collaboration is what makes up us as a whole. And when one of them is feeling left out, just like in any relationship, if one is feeling left out, it's going to do one of two things. It is either going to make some noise and get noticed, the good way or the bad way, whichever way it manifests. And I say bad with quotes, of course. Or it becomes very quiet and it limits itself, right? And we've all been in those spaces in our life where we have either been feeling limited or that we are that squeaky wheel, or we are needing to shout to be heard, and even then may not get our message across. Our whole system works that way. And our physical body is that manifestation of all of those interconnected workings in the background. Now, for you men watching, we can replace these, with boy and father and grandfather. Most of my audience is feminine, and so I'm just going to go with that. That is mostly what I teach, but definitely don't want you guys to feel left out. We are the maiden, the mother, and the wise woman. And yes, we go through seasons of life where we'll express one more than the others. But we are actually all three combined as one. We are here to play and explore and experience. We are here to nurture and find balance and create life of all dimensions. And we are here to gather the resources and nourish and share the wisdom. And these elements do not happen in a vacuum. We all know of the little child that we've said, oh my goodness, that's an old soul. We all know of the little child who just empathically knows when someone's in pain. The age, the biological number does not define these energies coming forward. Even at conception and birth, we hold the energy of all of these archetypes. And all of these archetypes come forward to help restore balance and promote growth within the system. we're not able to exclude just one. And sometimes people will really struggle and they'll say, I didn't birth a child. How can I have mother energy? And birthing physical, biological children is one way to become a mother. But if you've ever met an amazing teacher or a storyteller, they definitely carry some amazing motherly energy within them. They can birth that creativity to help us find the wisdom within the story so that we can enrich and better our lives. When we think of mother and the capacity of having birthed a child, yes, that is one element. And thank goodness these mothers are present, whether they do the raising or not, because they birthed us. They brought us here together in this moment. But understanding that mother energy and the mother wounds can be present whether you've birthed a child or not. And that's really important to remember these things. Just as a 4-year-old can be a wise woman, a 74-year-old woman can offer the play and the laughter and the curiosity of a small child. And all of these elements bring forward essential elements of healing and fully making the most of this human experience. And next, there is no such thing as an accident. This is the one that I usually find people have the most difficult time digesting. And when others share things with us, it's usually because we've at least had a season where we've experienced it ourselves. And this is a principle that I've lived on for most of my life. I did not have an ideal childhood. I certainly did not have an ideal adolescence. I've been on my own since I was 15, teen mom at 17, divorced at 19. Definitely not the ingredients for what one would expect to be a recipe for success. But that resilience was built into there is no such thing as an accident. I am here on purpose. There is something to what is happening that is for a greater good. And fortunately, I was able to really live by this principle for most of my life, and it got me through some really challenging times. But there was one time when I was 36, I was hit by an impaired driver. I got a brain injury, lots and lots of other injuries. And my husband was even told to put me in a dark room that I'd never get better, that this is just the way life would be. And I did go through that season of anger and resentment. And I had a hard time understanding there's no such thing as an accident when it was a physical accident that I felt took away my life. But there is wisdom and opportunity for healing and growth in everything that we experience and with every soul that we meet. We are the teacher and the student, as are all those we encounter along life's journey. And everything happens for us and not to us. So, going back to this accident and the anger and the healing that had to come from that, part of that anger was that I felt everything had been taken from me. I couldn't play with my kids. I couldn't drive my car. I was not able to go back to work. And in fact, was fired in my favorite coffee shop because every time I went to the work office, I would burst into tears because I couldn't go back to work. And I just wanted to help the families that I loved working with. So they thought, okay, well, she's never coming back to work. We got that validation. Where's somewhere we can meet her where she's not going to cry and make us uncomfortable? My favorite coffee shop was the place. That's where we went. But if all of those things had not happened, rewind, if that car accident had not happened, there's a really high likelihood that I wouldn't be here connecting with you today. You see, when I worked within that institution of child welfare, and when I worked in the institution of education, I was not able to shine my light, at least publicly. I was not able to share that I connect with spirit. I was not able to share my intuitive and my spiritual gifts because they kind of bump with the whole psychological platform that really is where the funding comes from in those institutions. And so much of my insight needed to stay quiet. I can remember after that accident getting a call from one of my supervisors. And if you've been with me a while, you've heard this story before, but I think it bears repeating. He said, I just thought you had really good informants. And I said, I do. You see, I would go into his office or another supervisor's and I would say, okay, this, and this happened. I can verify it. This also happened. I'll get back to you on that. Now, could I say, I'm connecting with this young mom and she's really struggling, and I know this because her dead grandmother told me so? No, probably not. Probably could not have gone into a report of any kind. But could I allow that relationship with grandma to help me build a better relationship with my client and truly help them? Absolutely. And that's how I worked it. It's not that I shut down my connection with spirit, but I did shut down what I shared with others. And so, had it not been for that accident, had it not been for me saying, my life's over, like, what am I going to do? I'm here to help people, and I've just been told I can't help people. And my husband saying, you love doing readings. Why don't you do your readings full time? Now, I will tell you, I looked at him like he was bananas. I'm like, where are you going to go get a university degree for giving readings? And he challenged me a little bit, the man of many degree collections. He says to me, well, what if you don't need a degree for that? You're already doing it. What if you just did that? Now, between my connection with spirit, my love of helping others, and then my love of teaching, I was able to grow something beautiful. But had it not been for that season of quiet, that season of healing, and that transformation of victim into stepping into who I truly am and being proud enough to share that with the world, I may not be here with you today. And so, yes, there are things that happen in the world that we can't necessarily explain. But if we can understand that what is not able to be explained, what may cause pain in the short term, still might be part of our divine plan. Just something to think about. Now, I wish I could tell you that I came up with this saying. I did not, but I love it. It's one of my mantras that I tell myself whenever things get tough. Broken crayons still color. And I think this is one of the most important messages we can ever embrace. There are so many forgotten souls on our planet who do not understand that they are so incredibly valuable because they live in a society that doesn't value exploring gifts at a deeper level. Regardless of age, ability, intelligence, appearance, or status, we all have something valuable to express. We all have something valuable to contribute and shine to the world. Many years ago when I was working in social work, there was this young boy I was working with, and he had Asperger's syndrome, which would now be considered autism. And he loved to vacuum. He had a collection of vacuums. He loved vacuums so much and vacuuming. And this wise young man, the one day I said, what is it about vacuums? Like, what do you love about it? And he said, it's something that I do really well. I'm really good at vacuuming. And he proceeded to show me, did you know if you move the vacuum in this direction with the fibers, you'll actually pick up more from that carpet? And did you know you can actually clean more than a carpet? And he continued to show me all these wonderful things. Now, I don't know what happened to this young man, but I will tell you, I have visions inside of him having this amazing cleaning company where he goes in and brightens people's day, doing what he loves that others don't have time for. And I hope he's paid so well for it. We all have something to contribute. Whether you love to draw mandalas, right? Or you love to play with people's hair. Maybe you're just really good at picking out colors and palettes for somebody's home. Maybe you're just really good at seeing what's broken inside people and spinning it in a new way so they have a new perspective on that brokenness, and instead they see a healed journey in their past, something that they can catapult into teaching others in the future. We all have something to contribute. It is not based on education or economic status. It is based on the magic that we each hold inside. And you're not here to suffer. Grief and sadness and disappointment and challenges and transition, they happen. We all experience them as part of this human experience. We share the experience. Sometimes we share the experience a whole lot. Sometimes we keep it to ourselves and let it fester inside. We feel it. But the purpose of that experience was not to suffer. And that can sometimes be really challenging to wrap our heads around. And when we apply that we are not here to suffer to a challenge that we have, it begins to open up the cracks. It opens up the light. It opens up the doors so that we can then consciously choose to accept it in a new way. Now, here's one of the examples that I have for you. A few years ago, we had the most incredible squash crop. We had so many squash. Chris and I thought we'd be eating squash every day for the whole year. But we got some powdery mildew, and some of that squash wasn't doing so well. Wasn't doing great. So we had to pick it all off before it was going to be right, before it was going to be ready, and just hope and pray that it was going to be all right. So the things that, were contaminated by the powdery mildew got put in one pile. We weren't going to use them for this project. But the ones that were going to not necessarily be great for food still had a purpose. They made incredible chicken treats and compost. Now, we could have looked at this experience like, oh, what a huge loss. We've spent all summer. And really, by the time I planted the seeds in the spring, combined with the planting in the garden, and then watching them grow and watering them as needed and taking care of them and doing all of the things. If we'd focused on the loss, going from this extreme joy of, oh my goodness, we're going to have so many squash, we can eat them every day and share with all our neighbors and our kids, to we got to get them all down and they're not ready and they may not be working out. Now, what I will tell you is we had enough squash that year, and not because of our crop. You see, our crop like I said, got divided. Lots of great chicken treats and amazing compost. One local farmers took some for his pigs. But I had another neighbor who she also had an abundance of squash. And she said, Sam, I have more squash than I could ever use. Can you please take these off my hands? We're not here to suffer. And sometimes it's just the perspective, just turning and pivoting to see it from a new vantage point to say, you know what? It's not what I intended it to be. This hurts in the moment. But what else could it possibly be for? And then when we share those experiences, then others can say, and you know what? You can also use it for A, B, and C. And I had a cousin and she did this and it worked out really, really good. And we share that experience some more. And we feel. And when we feel that disappointment, when we feel that sadness, and we say to ourselves, we're not here to suffer. I'm feeling this. I'm acknowledging that I feel this. But my programming is that I'm not here to suffer. So, what else could this possibly be? What beautiful opportunity is waiting for me? You know, many years ago, I had another client. She had suffered a brain injury as well, but it was a little different. I believe she had had a stroke or something along those lines. And she had been, I believe it was a secretary to a principal in a big school. And she had incredible organization skills and multitasking skills. And she could remember every name of every kid and their parents and siblings for the last 40 years in that school until she'd had the stroke. And with that stroke, she lost half the function of her body. So one side of her body, her one hand and arm didn't work very well. She couldn't remember names the way she once did. She told me she could remember faces, but not names. And just putting a to-do list together was a real struggle for her. And I had to tell you, she was one of the happiest ladies. And I said to her, do you mind sharing with me what is the secret to your happiness? And she said, I get to sit here and watch my favorite shows, have beautiful people like you come to visit me, and I get to craft all day. And she waved her hand with my good arm. You see, she chose not to sit in that sadness and that disappointment. A year prior to meeting her, her goal was a few years and I will hit retirement. My husband and I are going to travel. And instead, she turned it into an opportunity for what else could she do. And I will tell you, she still did some traveling. It didn't look the way they planned it, but she still did some traveling and she really loved getting visitors throughout the day. So when her nurse came, or when I came, when her granddaughter came, for her, that was just, she said, if I were still working in the school, I couldn't do these things, you know? And she really enjoyed it. Why do I share this with you? I share this with you because all of us experience grief and sadness and disappointment. We all have challenges in life, and we definitely all go through life transitions. And we get to own them. They're part of our story. But when we sit in them, when we sit in a belief that something happened to us instead of for us, it prevents us from experiencing the joy and something even better than we could have imagined to come forward. All right, we're going to have some fun with this one. Your very existence is a miracle. You are an incredible miracle. About 3 million sperm were released with only one egg. And one sperm in that 3 million succeeded. 1 in 3 million, not great odds. Let's just face it. but what a miracle that it happened. Very few times in the human experience and lifetime do we have to beat odds like that. You were meant to be in this body, in this lifetime, and in this moment. And sometimes we get really stuck on, I'm guilty. I'll just use myself an example. I have said to my husband quite a few times in the last couple of years, I don't know what timeline we're on, but I want back on the other one. I want to know how to jump back because I don't know that I love this one very much. And yet I chose to be here. I chose to be here in this moment. I truly believe that. And this, may not jive with your spiritual beliefs if you believe, in past lives, or maybe you don't believe in past lives, whether you believe in intentionality or you don't. I'm guessing you're at least flirting with the idea that they're possible because you're here. But you were meant to be in this body, in this lifetime, and in this moment. You are an incredible miracle. And I and many others are so grateful to have you here. I want to thank you so much, not just for being here watching this video with me, not just for hanging out or being a part of the Consciously Creating Your 2025 Online Summit, or maybe you're watching this later on YouTube or listening to it on the podcast, wherever you're finding it. I want to thank you for being you, because without you, none of us would exist. Just as we create the patterns in our lives, we create the programming that we run. If you were not here creating your programming, being open to our existence, being open to the energy that we bring to the world, we just wouldn't exist. You make it possible. I hope that you really enjoy the rest of the summit. We've had so much fun putting it together for you. We still have a couple days left. If you're watching this on the replays, please do listen. There's some other videos waiting for you. And I just know that you'll get at least a couple little insights, wisdoms, and nuggets from this opportunity. So thank you so much for being here. We're so grateful for you. And I will look forward to seeing you soon.